Okay, let's move on to something else short. This guy seems to think someone is JFK or JFK Jr. Blackwing Hecate says, I mean, I hope not. That'd mean my girlfriend isn't real, and that's not cool. That would mean you're not real, though, too. And two negatives make a positive, if you multiply them. So. And India Owl says, so maybe that was a message from God telling him to cut that shit out.
Laugh now, cry later. So it's in your face. I make this video just to show you that, President Kennedy has returned.
He is not. Also, this is Dead Celebrity Returns to fight the Cabal or whatever on the bingo card.
John F. Kennedy Jr. has returned as vice president. And
that's not how that works.
It's right here in your face. So I just want to show you something real quick. This is our vice president. He has distinct hands. This is him here. And if you notice the hands and then the
Why
veins
is
in the
JFK
hand.
Jr. taking so long to return? What's the damn holdup? In fairness, he's only had 23 years to get ready, okay? The guy, it takes a while to look that good.
Hands.
Not necessarily QAnon as a source. He didn't say that yet. Wouldn't JFK Sr. be like over 100 years old? He would.
It's another picture. Very distinct hands.
They're hands. They're certainly human hands. Rachology says, I almost got killed by a crocodile. God wasn't telling me shit. It was the crocodile taking advantage of me for being stupid enough to lean over the edge of a bridge in a crocodile pen because I hadn't read the sign saying don't lean over the bridge because crocodiles can jump high out of the water. Narnia Owl says not everyone can afford the VIP treatment like Jesus. True. He paid for the expensive package, only 3 days. JFK Jr., for some reason, he basically had the Titanic steerage class version of Resurrection. Takes a while. Nick says, tempted to smack his hands into his face right now. And Blackwing Hecate says, a vice president, so he's not the vice president of the United States. Ergo, this is bull pocky. That's the issue with this statement, clearly. Not that he's talking about someone who's been dead for a couple decades.
Very distinct hands. And I think that they were meant to help us to identify him in disguise or when he's kind of not revealing himself. Here's another picture.
JFK has more lag than Jesus. Yeah, his ping is shit.
You can't see the veins as well in this picture, but you can see a little bit. And the president posted a picture online with himself and John F. Kennedy Jr. together in one picture. And it's right there on El Donado Trumpo. When you go to El Donado Trumpo, he has this picture pinned up. But this is a picture of President John F. Kennedy in a Trump mask.
Blackwing Hecate says, I was going to say God has fiber, whereas the Project Looking Glass only has DSL. Okay, so in this picture, Donald Trump appears to be signing either an executive order or a bill of some kind. Even if what this guy was saying was true, which it is not. JFK Jr. has been dead, and Donald Trump was not a man in a mask. It was Donald J. Trump. If JFK Jr. were secretly alive... First of all, he can't be the vice president without people knowing. That's not how that works. It's a public office. You have to swear in publicly on the record. But let's even throw that aside. Let's say JFK Jr. was the vice president somehow, and he was wearing a Donald J. Trump mask in this picture while he's signing something. That would be illegal, because he would be impersonating the president and forging his signature on an official government document, whether it be a executive order or an executive order or a bill or whatever it is. So there are a myriad of problems with this. But those are just some of them. Prakagam says, we all know Biden's just a comedian in a mask. Why can't Trump be the same?
Which is what it looks like. And to his right, because he's his right-hand man, is Junior. And you can tell by the hand.
Wait, I'm sorry. He's saying to his right is Junior. Does he think, I gotta listen to this again, hold on. Does he think JFK Sr. is Trump?
But this is a picture of President John F. Kennedy in a Trump mask.
Okay, he thinks it's JFK Sr. in a Trump mask. JFK born. So JFK was born in 1917. So he would be 105 years old. He would be 105 years old. And he thinks that 105-year-old JFK, who miraculously recovered very well from having his fucking head blown off, like a big portion of the back of it just... After recovering from that and the severe brain trauma, he apparently is doing great. Lived to the ripe old age of 105, and he's spry enough to impersonate the President of the United States in a Mission Impossible style, lifelike mask. That's impressive. Who says healthcare in America's dog shit? We can have dead presidents living to 105 and impersonating the current president. Nick says, if it were JFK, he'd be ineligible for 2020 because he lasted more than 2 years in office, so his term counts as one term, and in 2016 to 2020 counts as his second term. Oh, I see what you're saying, if it was Trump. Lily Lovestuff says, why do they obsess over JFK Jr.? They already have RFK Jr. I don't know. I really don't. Prakagam says, obviously he's put into cryo when he isn't needed. Gosh, don't you know we have med beds now? Found Peter. Blackwing Haggerty says, has anyone tried dumping rice in front of Trump?
Which is what it looks like. And to his right, because he's his right-hand man, is Junior. And you can tell by the hand. And that's right there on El Donato Trumpo. Here's another picture that makes it clear. You can see it if you put it, go back and forth. You look at the hand here, the right of President Trump. Right behind this President seal, you see the hand of Vice President Kennedy.
Their hands.
All right, you can see.
That's a hand, and that is also a hand.
I'll do it one more time. Bam. That's the hand of the Vice President. There it is. You can see it pretty clear. And the body here doesn't look like Trump.
He's extensively studied the body hair of Donald J. Trump. Let me tell you, if anyone knows every body hair on that man, it's him.
So this is very much most likely a disguise, and this is President Kennedy in a disguise, red tie. Here's a close-up of the hand. It looks identical. Veins in the hand. The hand is...
Everyone has veins in their hand. Like, what?
Looks like the hand of Junior. This is a picture that they did of...
Vincent Fusca or whatever his name is.
A comparison.
There's this other guy who goes to a lot of Trump rallies that the Q people also think is JFK Jr. His name's Vincent Fusca or something. Narnandia Owl says, would that even be allowed, having a VP that's directly related to the POTUS? Not that it would matter at this point, since everything else would be incredibly illegal. There's no law saying you can't be related, the vice president and the president now.
Comparison between Mr. Kennedy Jr.
Now, is it Q as a source? He didn't specifically name Q. He has to source Q. He has to say, in a Q drop, this thing happened, or this thing was said, or Q said he's not doing that.
Vice President Kennedy and Vincent Fusca, who's also Kennedy, in disguise. And you see it's the same pose.
No one ever stands like this. This isn't an incredibly common pose, especially for photography. Rachology says, how long until some Republican hints that their JFK Jr. returned in an attempt to boost their election chances? Midterms are coming up, so keep an eye out.
You know, the right hand over the left hand, and that's his pose.
The funny thing is, too, Vincent Fusca goes to Donald Trump rallies, so sometimes he's playing Donald Trump, but sometimes he's Vincent Fusca at the rallies watching Donald Trump. Psychedelic says, doesn't this guy know people don't have veins at all? No, people don't have veins at all, let alone in their hands. Those blue lines under people's skin is just puppet strings. Tucker White says, wait, so Trump is JFK Jr., or no, sorry. Wait, so Trump is JFK, which means Lee Harvey Oswald, quote, shot, unquote, a body double? Thus, Kennedy actually won a Razzie for his role in Ghosts Can't Do It, was pictured with Jeffrey Epstein and ran for president. Dent. Is this
And you see him here in disguise as Fusca, and then you see him without disguise. Same pose, same hand. Everything's the same. And here is the same pose, except he has right over left in this picture here. That's not a coincidence.
But you see, because the hands are reversed, that means it's actually evil JFK Jr., KFJ Jr. from the Mirror Universe. They only shot him from here down because you can see he has a goatee if the camera pans up, and that's the tell that he's evil.
That's right over left, not left over right. Interesting. So, it's in your face, 165. Welcome back to Vice President Kennedy, to President Kennedy, President Trump. It's in your face. It's like right there. Amazing. Amazing that we're living to see it. Well, just thought I'd share that with you just so you know. Tell your friends and your family John F. Kennedy Jr. is back. And they're not hiding it. Okay? It's pretty much in your face. Pledge my allegiance.
Oh god, it says in God we trust, but the O is replaced with a Q. He referenced Q. I'll give that to the person who wants Q referenced as a source. That's a Q reference.
Pledge my allegiance.
T with Goblins with 100 bits says, one thing I don't quite get, JFK was a Democrat and a fairly progressive one for the era, and a Catholic too, if I remember correctly. True. Even if either he or his son were still alive, why on earth do these dimwits think that they'd be super gung-ho for radically right-wing reactionary movements? I've discussed this before on stream, but I'll discuss it again. To them, JFK is not a real person. If you look at the age groups of people who follow Q, it's mostly baby boomers, Gen Xers, and some millennials, but not very many millennials. It gets higher as you go up in age group. I think the biggest group is actually Gen X. So the people who mostly follow Q aren't people who were alive during JFK's candidacy or presidency or anything like that, or at least were people who weren't old enough to be paying attention to it. These are people who grew up in the shadow of the assassination of JFK. These are people who, in pop culture and in culture at large in America, saw JFK not just as a man, not just as a president, but the idea of an American president, a presidential president, you know? Dignified, handsome, all that sort of shit. Cared about the people, stuff like that. They don't know his specific policy positions. If you went and asked someone who believes this conspiracy, hey, what policy positions did JFK run on? They wouldn't know. It's not about him being a Democrat or progressive. It's about him being the iconic American president of the 20th century. It's about them wanting to harken back to a time period that they long for. The 50s, the 60s, old 20th century America. America at the height of its, like, cultural hegemony, if that makes sense. But before the civil rights movement, before a lot of stuff, or at least before the Civil Rights Act, I should say, like directly before it. So to them, he's a symbol. It's not about him as a person, it's about Kennedy and his family dynasty as a symbol of what they want, or at least what they think they want. So you gotta stop thinking about stuff about Q literally and think about it in terms of narrative. Because the people who construct this conspiracy and follow this conspiracy are not thinking literally or in real-world terms. They are 100% thinking in narrative terms because that's how their brains work, or if they're an orchestrator of this stuff, because they're trying to manipulate people. That's why you see so much connection to Q people who talk about, like, oh, we're in a movie. We're living in a movie. It's all a movie we're watching. Because their brains are not viewing this, whether they realize it or not, as a real series of cause and effect events, but a narrative.